There's a moment when you realize that the most devastating power isn't the one that destroys through force, but the one that simply steps back and lets reality do the work. It happens in boardrooms, in relationships, in social circles, in the digital arena where egos collide with brutal transparency. You're watching someone who's been riding high on delusion, drunk on their own narrative of superiority, and suddenly you understand something that changes everything. They're not your enemy to defeat. They're an architect of their own ruin, and you're simply the one wise enough to stop providing the scaffolding. This is the philosophy of strategic withdrawal, of intelligent invisibility, of power so sophisticated it never needs to announce itself. While others exhaust themselves in the theater of dominance, screaming their strength into the void, you learn to recognize the profound truth that Machiavelli understood but never fully articulated. The prince who never has to use force is the one who wields the ultimate authority. Not because he lacks the capacity for destruction, but because he possesses something infinitely more terrifying, the ability to make others destroy themselves. Consider the psychology of the truly arrogant individual. They don't just want to win, they need to be seen winning. They don't just want to be right, they require public validation of their correctness. They don't just want power, they crave the recognition, the applause, the acknowledgement of their dominance. This need, this compulsive hunger for external validation becomes their greatest vulnerability, because the moment you understand this, you realize you hold something they desperately want. Your attention, your resistance, your participation in their theater of superiority. And here's where the philosophy transcends simple manipulation and becomes art. You don't fight them, you don't argue with them, you don't try to expose them. Instead, you do something far more elegant and infinitely more devastating. You give them exactly what they think they want, complete freedom to display their true nature, and then you remove yourself as their audience at precisely the moment when their performance becomes most grotesque. In the digital landscape, this manifests in specific observable patterns. Picture this scenario. Someone launches an unprovoked attack on your character, your work, your intelligence. Their followers gather like vultures, ready to feast on your reaction. The conventional response is defensive, to explain, to justify, to counterattack. But you understand something they don't. You understand that they're not really attacking you, they're performing for an audience, and your reaction is the fuel that makes their performance believable. So when they write, this person clearly has no idea what they're talking about, probably another fake expert trying to make a quick buck. You respond with surgical precision. Not with anger, not with lengthy explanations, but with something that makes them reveal more of themselves. You write back, "I appreciate your perspective. Could you share your background in this area? I'm always eager to learn from genuine expertise." Then you wait. Watch what happens next. The truly delusional individual can't resist the opportunity to elaborate on their superiority. They'll write 3 paragraphs detailing their qualifications, their experience, their intellectual superiority. They'll become increasingly specific, increasingly grandiose, increasingly verifiable, and with each word, they're building the monument to their own exposure, because now, instead of you being on trial, they've made themselves the subject of scrutiny. Their followers aren't just watching your response anymore, they're evaluating the credibility of the person they've been supporting. Here's exactly how you execute this in real time. The pause is crucial. Let them finish their display completely before you respond. When they've exhausted their need to prove themselves, you deliver the surgical strike with perfect calm. Thank you for that detailed explanation. I noticed some inconsistencies in your timeline that I'd love to clarify privately. Would you mind if I reached out directly? You've just done something masterful. You've implied that you've fact-checked their claims, you've suggested that you have information they don't know you have, and you've offered them a private conversation that they either have to accept, revealing potential weakness, or decline, appearing to have something to hide. But the art goes deeper than tactical responses. The true power lies in understanding the psychological architecture of self-destruction. People who are genuinely confident don't need to constantly prove their confidence. People who are actually intelligent don't need to continuously demonstrate their intelligence. People who possess real power don't need to repeatedly assert their dominance. The individuals who do these things are revealing an inner emptiness, a fundamental insecurity that they're trying to fill through external validation. Your role as the practitioner of strategic withdrawal is not to feed this emptiness, but to highlight it through contrast. While they're shouting, you're whispering. While they're demanding attention, you're creating intrigue through selective unavailability. While they're explaining why they're superior, you're demonstrating competence through quiet action. The contrast becomes so stark that observers begin to question not just the substance of what the loud person is saying, but their very need to say it. In professional environments, this dynamic becomes even more sophisticated. Imagine you're in a meeting where a colleague is taking credit for work that was primarily yours. The conventional response is to interrupt, to correct the record, to fight for recognition. But you understand that this colleague has just revealed something crucial about their character to everyone in the room. They've shown that they're willing to steal credit, that they're insecure enough to need unearned validation, and that they don't respect collaborative relationships. Instead of fighting, you lean back slightly, maintain steady eye contact with the speaker, and let them finish completely. When they pause for the applause they're expecting, you speak with calm authority. That's an interesting summary, Michael. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the implementation challenges we discussed, particularly the 3 risks you identified during our Tuesday session. You've just done something devastating. You've implied collaborative work without claiming credit. You've tested their actual knowledge of details only someone truly involved would know. And you've done it all while appearing collaborative and supportive. If Michael was genuinely involved, he'll respond with specific details and you've lost nothing. But if he was stealing credit, he'll fumble, deflect, or become defensive, revealing his deception to everyone present. You've turned his attempt at credit theft into a public demonstration of his dishonesty, and you've done it while maintaining complete professionalism. The beauty of this approach is that it requires Michael to either admit ignorance or to dig deeper into a lie that becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. Either way, you've accomplished your goal without appearing petty, defensive, or unprofessional. You've let his own greed expose him, and you've done it in a way that makes you appear generous and collaborative rather than territorial. But here's where the philosophy becomes truly dangerous. As you master these techniques, you begin to understand that most social and professional conflicts aren't really about the surface issues they appear to address. They're about power, recognition, control, and psychological validation. The person who understands this operates on a completely different level than someone who takes every conflict at face value. Consider the dynamics of romantic relationships. When a partner becomes accusatory, demanding to know why you've been distant, why you haven't been giving them enough attention, why you seem different lately, the conventional response is to explain, to reassure, to modify your behavior to address their concerns. But what if their accusations aren't really about your behavior? What if they're about their own insecurities, their own need for control, their own fear of losing something they've never really possessed? When they say, "You've been acting weird lately, like you're hiding something from me. Are you talking to someone else?" You resist the urge to immediately defend yourself. Instead, you look at them with genuine curiosity and ask, "What exactly do you mean by acting weird? Can you give me some specific examples?" You're not being defensive, you're being investigative. You're treating their accusation as data rather than an attack. Watch what happens. If they have legitimate concerns based on actual changes in your behavior, they'll provide specific, verifiable examples that you can address directly. But if their accusation is based on their own insecurity or an attempt to control you through manufactured drama, they'll struggle to provide concrete examples. They might say, "I don't know, you just seem different," or "It's not anything specific, it's just a feeling." Or they might start listing trivial behaviors that don't actually support their accusation. This is where you deploy strategic empathy. I can hear that you're feeling uncertain about something, and I want to understand what's really bothering you. But I need you to help me understand by being specific about what I've done that's created these concerns. You've just shifted the entire dynamic. Instead of defending yourself against vague accusations, you've made them responsible for justifying their suspicions with facts. The person who's operating from genuine concern will appreciate your willingness to engage with their feelings while asking for clarity. But the person who's operating from manipulation, control, or manufactured drama will become frustrated because you've refused to play the game they've designed. They wanted you to become defensive, to chase their approval, to modify your behavior based on their unfounded accusations. Instead, you've made them accountable for the validity of their concerns. Machiavelli wrote that it is far safer to be feared than loved, but he missed a crucial third option. It is most powerful to be privately understood and publicly underestimated. Fear creates enemies who plot your downfall. Love creates dependencies that become burdens, but being underestimated while possessing deep understanding creates a strategic advantage that can be deployed at will. This manifests most clearly in group social dynamics. Picture a dinner party where someone decides to publicly challenge your expertise, your success, or your character. They might say something like, "I'm sure everyone's impressed by your stories about your work, but isn't it true that you were actually let go from your last position?" The room goes quiet. Everyone's watching to see how you'll respond to this social grenade. The amateur responds with immediate defense. "That's not true at all. I left voluntarily to pursue better opportunities." The response reveals insecurity and sounds exactly like what someone who was fired would say. But you understand that this person has just made a critical error. They've revealed that they've been researching your background, talking about you when you're not present, and they're willing to make unfounded accusations in social settings. They've told everyone in the room something important about their character, not yours. You take a slow sip of your wine, maintain steady eye contact, and respond with genuine curiosity. That's an interesting assumption. What led you to that conclusion? You've just flipped the script entirely. Instead of defending yourself, you've made them defend their accusation. Instead of appearing reactive, you appear confident and curious. Instead of making it about your past, you've made it about their behavior in the present moment. If they have actual information, they'll present it, and you can address it directly. But if they're fishing or creating drama, they'll struggle to justify their question, revealing that they've made an unfounded accusation in a social setting. Either way, you've gained valuable information about their character while maintaining your own dignity. But the real power move comes in your follow-up. After they've either presented their evidence or revealed that they don't have any, you respond with calm authority. I appreciate you bringing that up directly rather than speculating privately. I think honest communication is always the best policy, don't you? You've just done something masterful. You've implied that they have been speculating privately about you. You've positioned yourself as someone who values direct communication, and you've made their attack appear petty and gossipy rather than legitimate inquiry. The room dynamics shift completely. The person who attacked you now appears to be someone who gossips about others and makes unfounded accusations in social settings. You appear to be someone who handles confrontation with grace and values honest communication. They've lost social capital while you've gained it, and they've done it to themselves. This is the essence of strategic withdrawal, allowing others to reveal their true nature while you maintain your positioning above the fray. You don't descend to their level of behavior. You don't engage in their chosen battlefield, And you don't allow them to dictate the terms of engagement. Instead, you create conditions where their true character becomes visible to everyone present. But here's where the philosophy becomes truly sophisticated. The most dangerous practitioners of this art understand that the ultimate goal isn't winning individual encounters, it's creating a reputation for being someone who doesn't need to win, because that reputation itself becomes a form of protection and power. When people know that attacking you typically results in them revealing something embarrassing about themselves, they become reluctant to challenge you directly. When colleagues understand that attempting to steal your credit usually leads to them exposing their own incompetence, they start treating you with more respect. When romantic partners realize that manufacturing drama with you tends to make them look manipulative rather than concerned, they begin communicating more honestly. You become someone who doesn't have conflicts because potential adversaries understand, either consciously or intuitively, that engaging with you in bad faith tends to backfire. This isn't because you're intimidating or aggressive. It's because you've developed a consistent pattern of responding to negativity in ways that make the negative person look worse rather than making you look bad. The professional applications of this understanding are limitless. In negotiations, while others are focused on what they want to take from the deal, you're focused on what the other party needs to reveal about their position. You ask questions that sound collaborative, but actually gather intelligence. Help me understand your timeline on this. What happens if we can't reach an agreement by your target date? You're not just learning about their deadline, you're learning about their alternatives, their pressure points, and their flexibility. In team dynamics, while others are competing for visible credit, you're building actual competence and letting your work speak through others. When someone takes credit for your ideas, instead of fighting for recognition, you continue developing even better ideas, creating a pattern where the idea thief becomes dependent on your creativity while you become known as someone who generates valuable solutions. In leadership scenarios, instead of demanding respect through authority, you earn it through consistent demonstration of judgment, emotional regulation, and strategic thinking. People begin to trust your perspective not because of your title, but because you've consistently proven that you see situations clearly and respond to challenges with wisdom rather than reactivity. This is the paradox of true power. The less you need to use it, the more you possess. The less you need to prove your worth, the more valuable you become. The less you need to win arguments, the more often you end up being right. The less you need others to lose, the more often they defeat themselves. Machiavelli observed that the wise prince seeks to be both feared and loved, but settles for fear if he cannot have both. But he missed the most sophisticated option. The prince who is neither feared nor loved, but quietly respected and privately consulted because his judgment is sound and his motives are clear. This prince wields influence not through force or charm, but through demonstrated competence and emotional reliability. Consider the long-term implications of this approach. While others are burning bridges through their need to always be right, you're building networks through your willingness to be useful. While others are making enemies through their need to dominate, you're creating allies through your ability to make them feel heard and understood. While others are isolating themselves through their need to prove superiority, you're becoming indispensable through your consistent ability to see situations clearly and respond appropriately. But the ultimate application of this philosophy isn't in winning conflicts, it's in transcending them entirely. When you truly understand the psychology of human behavior, when you can predict how people will respond to various stimuli, when you can see the patterns that drive most social and professional drama, you begin operating on a level where these conflicts become largely irrelevant to your objectives. You stop taking attacks personally because you understand they're usually not about you, they're about the attacker's relationship with themselves. You stop feeling the need to correct every misconception because you understand that people who want to understand will ask questions, and people who don't want to understand won't change their minds, regardless of what you say. You stop trying to control how others perceive you because you understand that your reputation is built through consistent action over time, not through winning individual arguments or conflicts. This shift in perspective is profoundly liberating. You're no longer at the mercy of other people's opinions, moods, or behavioral patterns. You're no longer reactive to their attempts to create drama, steal credit, or manipulate situations. You're operating from a centered place where you can observe human behavior with clarity and respond from wisdom rather than emotion. When someone tries to bait you into an argument, you recognize the pattern and choose whether or not engagement serves your larger purposes. When someone attempts to make you defensive, you see the manipulation and respond from strength rather than insecurity. When someone tries to put you in a position where you have to prove yourself, you understand the game and either decline to play or change the rules entirely. This doesn't mean you become passive or avoidant. It means you become strategically selective about when and how you engage with conflict. You fight battles that matter for reasons that matter, and you let others exhaust themselves on battles that only serve their ego or their need for drama. The result is that you begin operating with a kind of authentic power that doesn't depend on dominating others or proving your worth through competition. Your power comes from understanding, from consistency, from the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever situations arise without compromising your integrity or your strategic position. People sense this quality in you even if they can't articulate it. They begin treating you differently, not because you've demanded different treatment, but because you've demonstrated that you operate from a different level of maturity and wisdom. They become more honest with you because they sense you can handle the truth. They become more respectful because they recognize that you don't need their validation. They become more careful about how they engage with you because they understand, either consciously or unconsciously, that you see through superficial games and respond to people based on their actual character rather than their presentation. This is the ultimate expression of Machiavellian philosophy: power that doesn't announce itself, wisdom that doesn't need validation, strength that never needs to prove itself through dominance. You become someone who shapes situations through understanding rather than force, who influences outcomes through strategic positioning rather than manipulation, who achieves objectives through patient competence rather than aggressive ambition. And here's the beautiful irony: by releasing your need to control how others behave, you gain more influence over outcomes than those who exhaust themselves trying to control every variable. By accepting that you can't change other people, you become masterful at creating conditions where they reveal their true nature and make choices that serve your larger purposes. By understanding that you can't force respect, you develop the qualities that naturally command it. The person who masters this philosophy doesn't need to win because they understand something more valuable: how to create situations where their objectives are met, regardless of what others choose to do. They don't need to be right because they've developed the judgment to see situations accurately, regardless of popular opinion. They don't need to dominate because they've learned to achieve their goals through cooperation, strategic positioning, and intelligent timing. This is power in its most sophisticated form: the ability to achieve your objectives while allowing others to maintain their dignity, to protect your interests while avoiding unnecessary conflicts, to influence outcomes while remaining above the petty competitions that exhaust most people's energy and attention. And in a world where most people are still operating from ego, insecurity, and the primitive need to prove their worth through dominance, this kind of sophisticated power becomes an almost insurmountable advantage. While others are fighting yesterday's battles with tomorrow's enemies, you're quietly building the future you want to inhabit. The wise understand that true power whispers while weakness shouts, that genuine strength flows like water around obstacles while manufactured toughness breaks against them, that authentic confidence attracts what it needs while desperate striving repels what it seeks. This isn't philosophy for its own sake. This is the practical wisdom that allows you to navigate an increasingly complex world with grace, effectiveness, and unshakable inner authority. Power doesn't explain itself. Power doesn't justify its existence. Power doesn't need permission to operate. Power simply is, and recognizes itself in those who have learned to wield it with wisdom, restraint, and devastating precision.